to you by Penguin.
When the Lights Go Out by Carys Bray, read by Robyn Addison. How dreadful knowledge of the truth can be when there's no help in truth. Sophocles. The generations of men run on in the tide of time, but leave their destined lineaments permanent for ever and ever. William Blake. Part 1. The End of the Day. 15th of December. And it came to pass. He looks like a prophet, arm extended in exhortation as he stands beside the war memorial. Emma comes to a halt across the road, umbrella clutched in one hand, the other supporting a stack of books wrapped in brown paper and string. Should she? If she? The books tilt and she supports the tower with the umbrella pole. He is speaking, but she can't hear him over the sound of the traffic and the Salvation Army band playing carols on the corner of Neville Street. A double-decker stops at the lights, obscuring Emma's view. While the bus waits, she salvages the stub of her previous thought, which was to do with the weather and the music. Snow had fallen, snow on snow. The words of the carol are incongruous. The rain falls and falls, pouring down roofs and hurrying along gutters, skimming windows and diving off sills, collecting in divots and rolling away in search of its level. At first it was inconvenient, then irritating. Now it's intimidating, a reminder of water's powers, of its ability to loosen soil and cut stone, to slip into wall cavities and under the lips of doors. Even when the clouds are wrung out, the air holds wet memories and damp steals into houses, hitching rides on clothes and shoes, and in the segments of folded umbrellas. It has been years since it snowed. Emma remembers testing a drift beside the back door with a 30-centimetre ruler, barely discovering the ground before its whole length disappeared. Those were the days. Those days. She thinks of Dylan and James's reception class nativity when she hears that. And it came to pass in those days. So began Dylan's part when he was narrator 1, years ago, perhaps even during the year of the snow. Emma doesn't remember what came next, but the way he said, "those days," seemed very knowing. Afterwards, they would say it when something went wrong. And it came to pass in those days that Dylan forgot his lunchbox, that Dylan had to stay in at break time, that Dylan's teachers sent another note home. And, as Emma waits for the stationary traffic to shift on this wet Saturday morning in December, she thinks, and it came to pass in those days that Emma went forth to town for some Christmas presents and, while walking past the war memorial, beheld a man pointing to heaven. The bus coughs, then it pulls away, and she can see him again. Yes, a prophet, she thinks. All he needs is a staff, and a robe of righteousness. Has she made that up? She doesn't think so. It's got a decidedly biblical ring. A sandwich board stands beside him, covered in a series of exclamations. Record rainfall every winter for years to come. British cities most threatened in Europe for flooding. Sea levels to rise by 1.2 meters. Climate change threatens future of golf. Too much information, Emma decides, and the exclamation marks are misjudged. He gestures right, the thrust of his hand pointing past the arcades and ice cream shops, beyond the carousel and Silcox Funland, over the hump of the Marine Way Bridge and onto the sea. She suspects he is talking about the tide. Last year, the sea occasionally burst over the wall and onto the road, as if it was playing peekaboo. Perhaps he is envisioning a stage beyond games, when the sea lifts its skirts, steps over the wall, and tramps along Marine Drive, when empty shells line the road like ears, listening for the next incursion, and the next. Meanwhile, in parks and play areas, puddles collecting in the grassy landing spots under climbing frames and swings are spilling into ponds. The fields beside parks and rugby and football pitches at the schools.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?